Well, hello there. Welcome. Come on in. I'm Breeda Miller, and this is Take a Break with Breeda, 10 at 10-ish. So here we are, halfway through 2020. Thank you, Lord. But we still have a ways to go. So I hope you had a good holiday weekend. It was, I'd like to say it was quiet, but there was an awful lot of fireworks, and I've never been a huge fan of fireworks. Once I see like 3 or 4, and I say ooh and ah, and I do like the ones that go foot, 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 foot. I like those, but the big booms and the bangs, not my favorite, and I know my dogs did not appreciate it. So there wasn't any community fireworks here in our town, but apparently a lot of individual sales, and so I hope there weren't any accidents and people didn't lose appendages. But anyway, moving forward, that's those are the 2 words, right? Whenever something happens, moving forward. I hope that they've used them all up. Okay, I hope that people who can sleep at night or who get stressed out by the explosions. I know PTSD is a big issue for many veterans, and the poor old doggies, it really scares them. So anyway, I was thinking about here in the States, our summer is kind of chunked up, right? It's bookended by 2 holidays, Memorial Day and Labor Day, and then kind of in the middle is the 4th of July. And that's when I would always think of it as, oh, it's the middle of summer and we haven't done this or we haven't done that. It's not really the middle of summer. We still have 2 months to go. And really summer doesn't end on the calendar until like September 21st. So we have time. We have time to enjoy the warmth and do things. But this year's just so different, isn't it? And I think a lot of us were on a time frame in the spring, in March, when the stay at home and the pandemic and stay safe, it was like, okay, I can do this. And we stocked up our supplies and we strategized about staying at home and changing our lives dramatically. And thought, yeah, well, I could do that for 8 weeks, 12 weeks, I'm willing. And now we realize it's going to be longer than that. And we really have to make adjustments. We have to change. We can't make arbitrary decisions about dates and times, really. It's not under our control. And that is what is so scary and is so upsetting and discombobulating. That's one of my favorite words. Discombobulating for everyone to realize we don't have control over this, no matter how conscientious, no matter how thoughtful we are. There are things that are beyond our control, and that can be really frustrating and disheartening, because no one can say here's the end date and then we're good, because the things we're waiting on are out of our control. A vaccine, specific treatments that we know will be effective. So right now what we have to depend on is the good advice and good sense of medical experts who have a clue about this kind of thing and have learned a lot in the last few months. So, the top 3, wash your hands, stay physically distant from people, don't get up in their face, and wear a mask. So that in mind, I found this graphic and I shared it on Facebook, and I'm going to load it into the top of my Breeda Miller speaking page because it's really good. I didn't create it, so I'm sharing it, and I want to give credit to the counseling teacher who put this together, okay? So it is just a really nice graphic. And just in case you forget, okay? So there's a picture of a moon, I think, a circle, and a wolf looking up. And on the perimeter, it says, I cannot control all these things. And then in parentheses, so I have to let them go. I remember one day I was thinking about something, and I know I was overthinking it. And I was thinking about national issues and politics and legislation. And in my head, I was trying to solve this, right? And I was thinking, well, okay, well, if they did this and then they did this, then this might happen and that would be good and that would solve this and, blah, 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 blah. And I was kind of, really working hard in my brain on this. And then I just stopped and I realized, Breeda, it's not your job. No one's waiting on you to figure this out. No one is waiting for you to call them, for them to call you and say, Breeda, so what are your thoughts? What do you think? They're not. And I could take it off my shoulders. And there are so many issues that we are facing as a country. There are things that we can do ourselves with our own minds and our hearts and our own behavior. But there are so many big, big things out there that if we get too overwhelmed and we think it is our personal responsibility to fix all of them, it can really, really, be heartbreaking. So I'm not saying to be tone deaf. I'm not saying to ignore situations, but just recognize that we all have to do this together, and it's not your total burden to bear. So if you're feeling heavy-hearted about things, keep that in mind. So here's some things that just remember: you cannot control these things. So you are free to take them off your plate of worry. Okay? If others follow the rules of social distancing, you can't control that. The actions of others, right? You can see it on the news, you can see it, in communities, and it can be so frustrating, but you cannot control them. Full stop. Predicting what will happen. Yeah, unless you've got that crystal ball, or the you remember the 8-ball that you would shake and you would roll it and it would help you foresee the future. Even if you could tell the future, even if you have psychic capabilities, who knows, right? You can't predict what will happen because it is, what will happen is based on behavior of a lot of other people and a lot of things that are beyond your control. Other people's motives. You can't control them. And the base motive that I always think about when I see bad behavior is, I think two things. And I don't think the person who's acting out would appreciate knowing this was my opinion, so I keep it to myself. The first opinion I have is, that person is afraid. That person is very fearful, and that's why they're acting in the way they are. Or, my other go-to is, that person has low self-esteem. Because when some people put other people down in order to bring themselves up. Have you seen that behavior? Yeah. That, to me, that they might as well have a tattoo on their forehead. I have low self-esteem. That's why I'm being a jerk. So anyway, that helps me because I don't give them my attitude and I don't give them control over me. Another thing is the amount of toilet paper at the store, right? You can't control that. It is what it is. So stock up reasonably. Don't hoard. Don't be selfish. If you know someone who's not able to get out, can you spare a square? In the words of Elaine Bennis. Share what you have and help others. You'll feel better and their bums will feel better. And it is a stressful thing to think, I'm on my last roll. We don't need that kind of stress. So you might be able to control what you have in your house, but don't worry about it in the stores. They're making more. They are. The trucks are delivering them. They might be delayed, but they're making more. It's not a limited commodity. How long this will last? That's the big one, isn't it? I think we are all setting up these arbitrary deadlines. Well, by Memorial Day, we'll be back to normal. Or by 4th of July, everything's going to open up. We're going to be able to do what we want to do and hop on a plane and go places and have meetings and hear speakers. How others react. Yep, you can't control that. It has never ceased to amaze me when, no good deed goes unpunished sometimes. You can have the best of intentions and think that you are doing something in that is kind-hearted and that you mean well, but you cannot control how people will react to that. One of the things I often think of is when I'm speaking to someone and if they're a little off or they don't respond in the way I think, I stop and I think, you know what? I don't know what's going on in their house. I don't know the phone call that they just received 5 minutes before they were speaking to me that might impact how they react to me. So again, grace and space. However, here's the good news. Here are things that you can control. So embrace these bad boys and run with it. So focus, these are the things to focus on. Number one, your positive attitude. You own it. You can decide. Think about it as a magnet. Which way are you going to turn? Are you going to attract good things to your life, or are you going to repel good things to your life? Your positive attitude has something to do with that. It doesn't mean that you don't recognize the really tough spot that we're all in. But what it means is you look for the good. So in our case, we've been able to do a little bit of home improvement. And I think I've shared with you about my beloved screen porch. Well, we've been remodeling, which means it's been torn apart, and I have not been able to be out there, and that's sad. The good news is that we've been working hard at it. My husband, Jim, is so talented and good, and he has created the whole new ceiling in it, and that's done. And this morning, because it's going to be really hot today, and I live in a big old farmhouse, so we don't have central air conditioning. It gets hot, which is why the screen porch is so important. But instead of going for a walk this morning, since he got the really heavy work of finishing the ceiling thing that he was doing, I needed to wash the perimeter and the walls before we can start putting a fresh coat of paint on it. And I thought, you know what, if I got up super early this morning, it's going to be cold. Not cold, it's going to be cooler, and I could get that done. So I have to say, I'm pretty proud of myself because I got it done and then had enough time to take a shower and look presentable for you. So, it's Monday. That's a win. I'm so far ahead of the day already, I can't stand myself. Okay. How I follow the CDC recommendations, you can control that. You can make that decision about wearing a mask, about washing your hands, about social distancing, about when you do meet up with friends that you really have that conversation about what have they been up to? What are they doing? Not in a judgmental way, but if they just tell you that they just, were at the bar last night, you might want to reschedule that dinner. or you're going to meet outside. You're going to meet outside at a place, and if it starts feeling crowded, getting crowded, maybe it's time to go home. You can control that. Your own social distancing. Absolutely right. I think that's one of the good things about, shopping in a grocery store. I like going to Costco. I feel really safe there. It's a very large place. A lot of air circulating around. People are not crammed in, and everybody's wearing masks, so it's all good. But the space of a cart, is a nice space to keep, so that's good. Turning off the news. Yeah. There's, I think it's good to stay informed, but we don't want to be overwhelmed. So maybe you've been watching a little bit of Hamilton this weekend. I may or may not have been glued to the television for a little while this weekend. I loved it so much. But choose maybe one, if you watch the news and if you want to do that, choose maybe one program. So for a half an hour at 6:30, Jim and I watch the national news, or the international news, as my parents used to call it. But we watch the news, and we try to stay updated, but we don't listen all day long, and we don't just wallow in it because it's so disheartening. Limiting my social media. Yes and no. I do that. When I say limiting, I check in on social media quite a bit, primarily Facebook, but I have to tell you, I love my Facebook friends. I'm so uplifted when I see the comments, and I see the memes, and I see the pictures that people post. And if there's any crabby Appletons, if there's any people that are being rude or divisive, bye-bye. Either I unfollow them, or I certainly don't engage, and I don't want to get into that spiral. And you can control that. You can scroll on by. Somebody says something you don't like, or you can just not, you can unfriend them or just unfollow them or whatever. You don't have to make a big deal about it. Just limit your exposure to negativity, limit your exposure to toxic people. Don't get sucked in. You can control that. Finding fun things to do at home. So I'm not going to say that cleaning the trim and everything in the screen porch was fun this morning. But right now, I'm feeling pretty smug about it, feeling pretty good. So we are improving this space that we have, and we're enjoying it. And when the day comes that we need to downsize and sell this big old house, that work will be done. And I'm really grateful for that. So enjoying the cats and the dogs, enjoying our very quiet 4th of July celebration that we had. And because of the no air conditioning, I'm doing everything I can to not turn the oven on. So we're enjoying our grill and some good salads. And I was able to harvest some cucumbers from my garden. They were delicious. We ate them. So that was my cheap thrill for the weekend. I hope you had a good time. It's Monday. I talked about that idea about focusing, and I'm going to be listening to on Spotify that focus channel that I mentioned. My new bullet journal is getting filled in, and that's helping me focus a lot, and just feeling good about things. So it's Monday. It is early July. Take a break before you break. This is Breeda Miller, and I hope that you can make it the very best day that you're able to. So be safe, and I'll see you soon.